attributes and things like that, but we're going to cover it in more detail the second time around. Um, because each of these attributes that we're going to talk about, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they all
things
have.
like that, but we're
Whoops.
going to cover it in more detail the second time.
Okay. Okay, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين اللهم انفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما يا كريم يا كريم. So, last week we spoke about the attributes of Allah, and I was going to give you guys a reading from actually my book, the Pearls in the Deep, on the problem of evil, because there's a section in there where I spoke about the attributes, and I thought you guys would be able to do the reading because we'd have break this week, but I double checked with Sheikh Yusuf, and our class is still on. So classes are off on the 24th and I think the 26th and couple other dates. I'll send you those dates. But just to summarize what I said in my book, so for ever since humanity has existed, there has been attempts by human beings to understand Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there has been various ways in which people have attempted to understand Allah, and you can say they've been trying to understand like there's this absolute thing. Let me just put this on full screen. That there's this absolute reality, right? This different reality that human beings have always acknowledged, whether they were Buddhist or Christian or Hindu or Chinese or whoever, they've always acknowledged that absolute reality. And there have been human beings that have always been trying to understand what exactly this absolute reality is. Okay? And so one perspective of how to sort of understand that absolute reality is that you become, so this absolute reality is not of this world, obviously, or else it wouldn't be absolute. So one method has been to get rid of every single thing that attaches you to this world. So in a sense, to become more like the absolute by rejecting the world, by becoming as unworldly as possible so that you're getting closer and closer to becoming like the absolute reality. And the path that many of the religions that follow this path, what do you guys think? Which religions or which belief systems follow this path? Any guesses?
Buddhism.
Buddhism, good. Buddhism. I mean, literally the goal of it is to uh, get rid of yourself, right? Get rid of any type of desire, because there is no self. There is only the absolute. And Buddhism is, a lot of people say Buddhism doesn't believe in a God. Well, Buddhism operates on the framework of Hindu cosmology. Okay, that's the framework that it came into to reform, and also that it operates within that framework. So there is this type of absolute reality that's called nirvana that transcends all of existence, right? And there are many other religions that do this as well, right? Even ancient Chinese religion, Christian mysticism, so many different other religions. So that's one path that they thought that this is the correct way of sort of uh, getting in touch with this absolute reality. The second path is what many, many human beings have done all throughout, human history, is that they thought the best way to understand this absolute reality is to get a piece of this absolute reality, right? This absolute reality will actually come into creation. And when it comes into creation, then now there's a linkage between us and that reality. And this can happen either through idols, idol worship, or it can happen through the man god. So you have in the Greek world this idea of a person becoming God or a god becoming a person. So Zeus, taking the form of duck or a chicken and interacting with human beings or whatever it may be, right? Like the the reality over there comes into our world and we get to interact with it. So, and obviously the most famous example of this is Christianity. That how is it possible for the one God, the absolute God, that is nothing like um, creation, to have a relationship with his creation, with human beings that he created in his image, right? And the answer that the Christians give us is actually God came into the world. Now that we don't believe that, that God came into the world and God suffered as the way that human beings suffer, and God, that this was somehow possible and happened, and He died for our sins, and through this connection, now human beings can understand God through the person of Jesus Christ, right? Peace be upon him. So uh, now these are two extremes, and Islam was created the middle path. And Islam has an answer to this question because this is not the proper way of understanding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is not to um, get absolutely destroy the world and get rid of the world and to become like God because that can never happen, right? And also, God is the one who put you into the world in the first place. So it doesn't make sense that for you to understand God, that He would say, well, just completely deny who you are. Okay, so that path, it doesn't seem to be what is correct. The second path that God comes into the world is also impossible because God is nothing like us. So how is it possible that he can become us? The third path that Islam proposes is that we can never understand God's essence. God will always be unlike human beings, but we can understand God's qualities through the effects of his actions. We can understand God's qualities through the effects of his actions in creation. Okay? وَفِي أَنفُسِكُمْ أَفَلَا تُبْصِرُونَ. That the signs of Allah are even in yourselves. Don't you see? Allah says in the Quran. So we can understand Allah through his signs, his ayat in creation. What are his ayat? They're the athar af'alillah. That they are the effects of the actions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you can imagine that you can never ever look directly at the sun. So let's say we don't have the telescopes or whatever it may be today, and you want to understand what the sun is, how the sun is. Now, you can never look directly at it because your eyes will be destroyed. But when you look outside during the daytime, you see that, okay, when the sun is here, the entire sky is illuminated and I can see certain things, and there's different colors. Okay, there's all these vibrant colors. So, based on studying the effects of the sunlight, you get a better understanding of what the sun does, how it does it, and so on and so forth. Okay, even if you don't look directly at the sun. The same is true with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that we can't understand the that of Allah. We can never look directly at Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, obviously, because that's his essence. But based on how he creates things, for example, the carpenter creates a type of chair, you can appreciate his skill in the carpentry, you can appreciate his sense of art, you can appreciate his aesthetic taste. Whatever it may be, you're appreciating those things by looking at the effect of his actions. Okay, so this is what we mean when we say the study of the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're studying the effects of his actions in creation. Okay, can you guys see the slides? Am I sharing properly? Okay, okay. All right. Oh, let me just, the sun's coming in through. Speaking of the sun. Okay, so we said that there are two types of attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Well, there are many types, but two major types, which is the attributes that negate a meaning from Allah. And we said that these are all encapsulated in the understanding and definition of necessary being. Okay, and this is Wahdaniyya, Allah's oneness, Allah's qidam, qadim, that He's pre-eternal, He's baqi, everlasting, He's necessary, qiyam bi nafs, meaning He does not require any external entity to make Him exist, because He is the entity that makes all things exist. And He is transcendent above creation. He's nothing like creation at all. There's no similarity that then we can posit to Him. So He's mukhalifun lil hawadith. And then we have the attributes that affirm meaning, that they affirm some type of meaning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on His essence. And how do we get these meanings? When we say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has knowledge, that His knowledge cannot be something contingent. You see? So we have knowledge, but we have knowledge in a metaphorical sense. It's not in a true sense. Because the objects of our knowledge, we have no control over them. And the objects of our knowledge, at certain points, that they're there and they're not there, right? That they're very contingent things. So in a sense, we don't actually have knowledge in the real sense, bil haqiqa, right? But rather we have knowledge in a metaphorical sense. So when we posit that knowledge to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we say, well, in order to create something, then you have to know how to do it. You have to know all of the aspects of it, and you have to know it perfectly. Then that attribute that we posit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has to be, it has to be a necessary, transcendent type of attribute. It cannot be something contingent. Okay? So this is why we say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has knowledge. Okay? And uh, every single thing that He does, all of the actions of Allah, they are ala wufqi ilmihi, that they are based on what He has known, what He has known from pre-eternity. Okay? And knowing something itself is not enough to produce something. So this is also why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has will. He has irada. He is not, and there's a very important reason why we emphasize the fact that He has will. Because there's a conception of God which says that God is like a force of nature. That whatever God creates, it's by force, it's by ijbar, it's necessary that He creates. It's like a force of nature, right? That the philosopher's God, if you will. So a God without will. We say no, God could have chosen to create the universe or not to create the universe. He could have chosen that. But He chose to create the universe. So He has will. Um, and the best proof of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's will, just give you a very small proof, is the diversity in creation. So when you see diversity, you understand that there is a willing agent behind that diversity. Okay? When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and very simple, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chooses to create the universe 14 billion years ago, why not 16 billion years ago? Why not 17? Why not 18? So there is an operation that is happening that's specifying the time, the space, the form, the shape, all of these different things. So because there's specification requires some type of will to specify it. There has to be something choosing, right? Choosing, willing, deciding. It's not something simply, uh, that's being done like a machine. Okay, this is why we affirm the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Volition. And the proof of volition is the diversity in the world. The diversity in the world. And another very important proof of volition comes from Imam Maturidi, rahimahullah ta'ala, where he says that the presence of opposites in the world is also very strong proof of Allah's volition. Because if there are two things that are opposites, okay, they constantly oppose each other. They're opposites in the world, good and evil, right? Light and dark, magnetic forces, so many types of opposites in the world. And there has to be a volitional agent in order to create such opposites, okay? Because you know both possibilities and then you know how to manage them together, right? Or else you would just create one possibility versus another, okay? When you think of things existing, you don't think that the thing and its opposite will exist at the same time. I mean, that doesn't seem correct. But the fact that the a thing and its opposites exist at the same time in the world and it's constantly interacting, and things aren't sort of like blowing up, then that's a proof of a willing agent. Okay? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala obviously has power. And his power, his qudra, he does what he wills uh, with the power that he has, qudra. And his power specifically brings things from non-existence into existence. So this is something that is not shared by any creature of his. And our power that we have, we'll talk about this. What do you know? Strong refutation of the argument that all things could exist somewhere, answering those who say doesn't lead to diversity. Right. Yeah, all things could exist somewhere. Yeah, it would be a refutation. Yeah, I guess so. But like I said, the Akbarians would say, yeah, all things do exist somewhere, right? Right. So I'm not sure how they respond to it, but for the Kalam tradition, all possibilities don't exist. Okay, so this is a theory called actualism. Actualism. So every single possibility that you can think of exists. It's somewhere, either in a parallel universe or whatever it is. Okay. For the Kalam tradition, we say no. Uh, what you're thinking of is simply a theoretical possibility. Just like you can think of theoretical infinity. Okay. So you can think of theoretical infinity, so as a theoretical construct, but you can never have an actual infinite number of things at the same time. You can never ever have that because there's no such thing as infinite space, and there are proofs for that. There are proofs for that. Um, why you can't have an actual number of infinite things. Um, yeah. Does that answer your question, Brother Suhaib? And there are two parts of yeah, go ahead.
No, no, I was going to say, but when you say, the actual existence of infinity is not possible, but that wouldn't that be a refutation of Allah then?
No, no. The actual we're talking about in space, right?
Mm.
So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you have to understand, he's not some entity, right? Like some let's say like a computer. We have a computer. So it's not as if we're saying that Allah's like same thing like a computer, but just infinitely big. It's not the same thing. When we say Allah is infinite, it means that the possibilities that He can create are infinite according to His power. The possibilities of His knowledge are infinite. Okay? His will, what he could have chosen is infinite. And also his life, his the duration that he exists, right? There's no life that there's no time that's going on, right? But we're saying that he's outside of the flow of time. So that's what we mean when we say that he's infinite. We're not saying that he is this being that stretches out to infinity. Okay? So when we say that an actual infinite can exist, we're saying let's say this phone, right? So we're saying an infinite number of these phones can't exist at the same time because this would occupy infinite space, and infinite space is not possible. And the reason for that is because you would never stop counting it. Okay? Because any number that you give me, why you could say why not infinity plus 1? Why not infinity plus 2? Right? So there would never actually be an infinite space.
So I guess last point about that. So if you say if you have an infinite number of phones and you're saying there's existence, the existence of an infinite number of phones would lead to the non-existence of everything else. And so the existence of everything else actually proves that there can't be an infinite because you can't have both. You can't have an infinite number of phones and have the rest of the world or creation itself.
The existence of infinite number of phones would
Because if there's a limited number of possibilities. If you have a pie, like a pizza
mhm.
pie, and you have like eight possible slices, and you say we're going to make the entire pie mushroom, you can if the entire pie is mushroom, then there's no room for anchovies or any other items. It's basically
I see what
taken
you
up
mean.
by
I
the
see what you mean. But those people who say that infinities can exist, they affirm like multiple infinities. Okay, so in mathematics, you have, for example, the infinity between 1 and 2, like 1.1, 1. 2, 1.3. Like there are infinite number of numbers between 1 and 2. Okay?
mm,
But then there are infinite number of numbers between 1 and infinity. You see? So there are two different infinities, but
mm,
one infinity is bigger than the other one. You see?
mm.
So
Right.
so the people that say, you can have infinities in the real world, they'll say, "Oh, you could have multiple infinities. Why not?" So
Mm,
this doesn't make any sense because as you see with the number line, you can't write out all of the infinities. You have to put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Or you have to either put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or you have to either put 1, 1, 1.1, 1.1.1, 1.1, and then you have to keep going like that, right? There's never a situation where you can put an unlimited, infinite number of things in the same space.
right.
Never a situation. And every situation, every example you give me is a theoretical one. It's not an actual one. For example, Jannah, our life in Jannah. Is our life in Jannah infinite?
According to the Quran, after, yeah,
It's potentially infinite. It's not infinite.
right,
It's only potentially infinite, meaning it will keep going on every time.
right.
So it'll start, and then you add one, you add one,
Mhm.
you add one, you add. It just keeps on going on like that. There's no problem like that, right? Even if it goes on for 600 million billion trillion gazillion years, that's not infinity.
Mm,
You see? So you can never ever have an actual infinity at the same time in the same space. You can't
mm,
have that. And there are arguments, we'll get into next module, like Hilbert's Hotel and other arguments that prove the impossibility of it, because the laws of logic basically fall down. Okay, so there are two parts in the infinity discussion: infinite number of things at the same time in the same space. Okay, you can't have that. And even the old philosophers would agree that you can't have this, even people like Aristotle and so on. But then what if you could you have an infinite process, right? Could you have like something exists now, it's wiped out, another thing exists, it's wiped out, another thing exists, and it just keeps on going for infinity. That's a different discussion. Okay? And people like Avicenna, may Allah forgive him, Ibn Sina, and other philosophers, they said that that's fine. You can have that. And even people like Ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah ta'ala, he affirmed it. Okay? So he says, for example, that Allah has been creating forever. There was never a situation where there is the Khaliq, Allah, and He has not been creating, and there hasn't been makhluk. So some type of universe, there's always existed some earth, some type of universe, some type of creation from eternity with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's been creating it. Okay? And so that affirms an infinite past, basically. And we say that that idea is bid'ah. It's not correct. Okay? And we have arguments for that as well. So the famous Burhan at-Tatbiq, the famous Burhan at-Tatbiq, which we'll get into the next module. It's a very brilliant argument. I have not seen in any place in philosophy where this argument has been used, and it's very brilliant. Okay, and obviously Imam Ghazali and the other Ashari theologians, they came up with it. So okay, so Allah's power. Okay, so uh, and then we have the attribute of takween, creation, and we'll get into this today, where we are saying that power itself is not enough to create something. Yes, you have the potential to create. This is how the Maturidis look at it, that if you have power, it means you have the potential to create. But actually creating something requires a separate attribute. Actually bringing from non-existence into existence requires a separate attribute. And there are many, many actions of Allah, infinite number of actions, like giving rizq to so and so, or causing death to so and so, or giving life to so and so, and or punishing so and so, or forgiving so and so. So there's all these infinite number of actions that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does with His creation, and we can't say that these are being done like how are these being done within time? Okay, is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala changing as a result of these actions? We can't affirm that. So that seems very problematic. So the Maturidis, they have the separate attribute called at-takween, which says that all of the actions that Allah would ever do with anyone, that they have been done from pre-eternity. They have already been started, let's say, from pre-eternity, from eternality. And the example that they give is if you switch on a light, I mean this is a modern example, right? But if you switch on a light, the light comes on after 5 minutes. Let's say you have a time delay in the light. So in the same way, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has acted from pre-eternity. He's created from pre-eternity, but the effects of his action come at a specific time. Okay, and this is different than what Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah and these other philosophers are saying, where that Allah has been creating from pre-eternity, so there's always been some type of existence with him. Okay, so there was never a time in which Allah was alone, right? We say no, this is false. And this it clearly contradicts the hadith. And it contradicts the hadith where the Prophet ﷺ says, كان الله ولم يكن شيء معه. That uh, Allah was and there was absolutely nothing with him. So we have to affirm a type of creation ex nihilo. That there was Allah and at a certain point in time, right, where time actually starts, okay, and what and in the beginning of creation, this is actually the start of time, if it even makes sense to us at that level, things are falling apart, right, from our understanding. But there was a time where time began, if if you can even use that word, and that's at the beginning of the universe. Okay, but when there has to have been a period where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was himself and there was no existence. There was no creation. Okay? So we don't agree with the idea of the philosophers and Ibn Taymiyyah where they say that, creation has been taking place for eternity. Uh, Interestingly enough, Nursi seems to accept this idea, right? Nursi seems to, Said Nursi rahimahullah ta'ala, he seems to accept this idea. But he doesn't make a logical argument for it. He just says that it's hard to believe, let's say, that there has never been creation, that this is the only and first creation. He says it's very hard to believe for me. Um, and it's very possible that um, we don't understand the full scale of where we're living. Okay, I mean, it's very possible that, I mean, there's billions and trillions of galaxies in the universe. So it's very possible that there's a lot of stuff that's happening, right? That's very interesting out there that we're not privy to. So you can't just say, "Oh, look, human beings are like this, that." And is this it? Like this is the display of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's power? Well, you don't know. If you look at the universe, I mean, there's like so much of an open question of what is going out there, right? You could have, trillions of planets in the universe where there could be other species, there could be their own stories that are taking place, a different type of, situation that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created over there, right? And uh, that's not against Islam whatsoever. Okay, so and then we have the attribute of speech, will, sight, hearing, and life. So we spoke about those last time. And then we have the textual attributes. The textual attributes are attributes that that don't map to any of the 99 names. Okay, they don't map to any of the 99 names clearly. These all map to it, right? But these are words that have been assigned to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in linguistically. Okay, and we're trying to figure out what do they actually mean. And there have been different approaches to it. There have been different controversies of what they actually mean. But for the Maturidis, the Asharis will say, well, these are not actually attributes. They are part of the mutashabihat. They're part of the things that we can't know. Okay, so they're ambiguous, but they're not attributes of Allah. Okay, and it's very possible that they are metaphors pointing to a specific attribute of Allah, which is, the 99 names and even more. So it could be pointing to one of those, but they're not actually attributes that we assign to the that of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, this is the Ashari standpoint, the famous school of theology that Imam Ghazali is part of, Imam Al-Razi is part of, Imam Sanusi. I'm trying to think of Imam Al-Juwaini. So Al-Haramain, Imam Al-Haramain, he's the Imam of the two Harams, Medina and Mecca. So he was very famous during his time. And this is the tradition that they're following of Imam Al-Ashari and a lot of the Shafi'iyya, right? In fact, a majority of the Shafi'is are Asharis. Majority of the Shafi'is. The Maturidis, however, they don't accept this. The Maturidis and the Salafis, I should say, that these textual attributes, we say, are actually attributes of Allah. They are attributes. The problem is we don't know their meaning. For example, we know we can get an idea of what ilm or qudra or irada, will, sight, creation, we can get an idea of what they actually mean. Okay, even though we don't have this perfect idea, we can get an idea what Allah's knowledge might be like. Okay, his knowledge never starts and never ends. He knows all things as they are, and many other things we can sort of get an idea of how it operates, right? And his power. His power creates things from nothing. His power is infinite. It operates according to his will, and so on and so forth. It links to everything in creation. There's only one power in all of existence, and that is the power of Allah. Good. We're saying some things about Allah's attributes, right? And we can see the effects of those attributes in creation. Now, these textual attributes, we don't know what they are. This is what the Maturidis are saying. We don't understand what, like, for example, if we say Yadullahi fawqa aydihim, Allah's hand is over their hand. Okay? So the word hand here, what does it literally mean? And we say in the case of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it means something that is fitting for his essence. Okay? So it is a meaning applied to his essence, just like these attributes, but we don't have the full understanding of what it means. You guys have any questions on that? So, and then we'll say that it could mean, depending on the context, it could mean different things. Okay, depending on the context, it could mean different things, but we won't assign a meaning to it. We won't assign a meaning to it. Um, uh, yeah, so let's get to the next slide. We spoke about the proof for Allah's life. And so let's discuss the attribute of takween, creation. So this is something specific to the Maturidis, and let me read the spot in Tahawiya where he talks about that. Can you guys see this? The website? Yeah, you can, right? Okay. So let's. So here, قال المصنف رحمه الله تعالى ونفعنا بعلومه في الدارين آمين. Imam al-Tahawi says ما زال بصفاته قديما قبل خلقه لم يزدد بكونهم شيئا لم يكن قبلهم من صفاته وكما كان بصفاته أزليا كذلك لا يزال عليها أبديا ليس بعد خلق الخلق استفاد اسم الخالق ولا بإحداث البرية استفاد اسم الباري له معنى الربوبية ولا مربوب ومعنى الخالقية ولا مخلوق وكما أنه محيي الموتى بعدما أحياهم استحق هذا الاسم قبل إحيائهم كذلك استحق اسم الخالق قبل إنشائهم. Okay, ذلك بأنه على كل شيء قدير وكل شيء إليه فقير وكل أمر عليه يسير لا يحتاج إلى شيء ليس كمثله شيء وهو السميع البصير. Okay, so he has existed, he has eternally existed with his attributes before his creation. Their coming into being did not add anything to his attributes that was not there before. Okay, so like we said, we have the attribute of taqween because Allah has already been all of our creators from pre-eternity. It's not that when creation is created, the next phase of creation, he gains something in his attributes, he changes something, and then he's constantly creating like this. No, he has already created everything, and it's just the effects of his creation comes into being at a certain time. And this is why we can call Allah Khaliq even when creation didn't exist. Okay? We can call Allah Khaliq, we can call Allah Rahim, we can call Allah Ghafoor, and so on, all of the names, 99 names, even before any of these things existed. Okay? Because the process of them existing has already started. He's decided and he's created, and they only show up at a specific moment in time. Just as he was with his attributes in pre-eternity, so he will remain upon them for all eternity. So this is a very important passage because we're affirming that change does not occur within Allah. Allah does not undergo change. His essence does not undergo change. His attributes may be linked to some changes, but they themselves also don't undergo change. Okay? And so any idea that seems to affirm a dynamic change to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is batil. This is something we reject. Okay, and you see it here in Imam Tahawi's creed, which is from the time of the Salaf. So this is not something that we're making up here. لَيْسَ بَعْدَ خَلْقِ It was not after creating the creation that he acquired the name the creator, nor by bringing the creation into existence did he acquire the name the originator. So like we said, Allah is named with all of his names even before those things existed. He possessed the meaning of lordship even when there was nothing to be lord over, and the meaning of creatorship even when there was no creation. Okay, له معنى الربوبية ولا مربوب. Again, because all of these things that he will be lord over, he's already created them in a sense. There's no logical principle that says that when you create something, it has to come into existence right away. Okay? This is what the philosophers argued. That when you make something, it has to be in existence right away. Okay? Like at the same time. There can be no separation. But there's nothing as a logical principle that says that that has to be the case. Okay? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, starts the process of creation. It appears in a specific time. Okay? So he has been creator from eternity. Just as he is the giver of life to the dead after he brings them to life, he deserves this name before bringing them to life. Likewise, he deserves the name the Creator before creating them. That is because he is powerful over all things, and all things are in need of him. Every matter is easy for him. He is not in need of anything. There's nothing whatsoever like unto him, and he is the all-hearing, the all-seeing. Okay, so that is the attribute of the queen. The queen. And you can see here in the Quran, we have وَكَانَ اللَّهُ سَمِيعًا عَلِيمًا, that Allah is and has always been all hearing and knowing. فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ كَانَ عَفُوًّا قَدِيرًا. Allah is and always has been pardoning and capable. So Allah affirms these attributes for himself um, uh, abadiyan, right? That from منذ الأزل, from pre-eternity, that he's always been these things. Okay, so he never gains a new attribute. Allah never gains a new attribute. This is something for us to understand. And so, what are these attributes of action? What are these attributes of taqween that we're talking about? So you can think of creating, granting existence, okay, giving life, giving death, sustaining, which is keeping things in existence from moment to moment, and there's many other things that you can think of. Okay, so for example, anytime I move my arm, this is a type of sifat al-fi'l because this Allah is creating at this moment. Okay? So all of these sifat al-fi'l, all of these actions that are keeping the world, okay, in existence, these are all collapsed under taqween. Okay, taqween. So all of these actions have been decided from pre-eternity. Does that make sense to everyone? So every single one of these things have been decided and has been acted on and started from pre-eternity. Every single little detail, basically. All right, and just the effects show up in a specific time. Um, think of, for example, um, I'm trying to think of like a interesting example. I mean, وَلِلَّهِ الْمَثَلُ الْأَعْلَى, right? We shouldn't try to map these examples onto Allah, but just something to understand what we mean by it is you can think of like how many of you guys actually this is a bad example because I don't think a lot of you guys have watched anime, right? Um, I mean, just raise your hand, those of you who watched anime. Any type of cartoons, anything like that. So, like in the fight scenes, the hero is going to, what is, Goku, Vegeta, whoever, right? They like punch like 1,000 punches, right? And then they punch 1,000 punches, and then they go stand on the ground, and then after like a couple seconds, the dude, he feels all the punches. Has anyone seen a scene like this, right? Just out of the action, he's so fast basically. He punches like 1,000, right, all over his body, and then he goes away, and then, crosses his arms, and then you see like, the effect of the the guy gets beaten up. So something similar, just for you to understand where the effect of the action isn't immediately right after the action itself. Okay? So something like that. And this attribute of Allah of creating is eternal, unchanged, perfect, but their effects show up at a specific time in creation. All right. So and the Ash'aris would say that we don't need this attribute. I mean, you guys are just positing an extra attribute when we don't need it, right? Well, we're just gonna say that it just goes back to his power. Why do you need this extra thing? But we say no. Um, because power itself is not enough the power just refers to ability. For example, I now have the power to drink water, let's say. I'm not drinking water though. I have the power to drink water, but I'm not drinking water. So the way we use power is usually in terms of potentiality. That's something I have the potential to do. So when I'm drinking water, this is a separate thing. This is an extra thing that I'm doing. Okay? And so for the Asharis, they would say that the sifatul fi'l, these attributes of action, okay? These attributes, they were not always there in pre-existence. Okay, that they were not always there in pre-existence. And this is something that we would disagree with them about. Okay? And it seems that this idea of taqween is much closer to the idea of the Salaf and also the text of the Quran. Okay, so now we finished going over the attributes of Allah. Now we're going to look at the textual attributes. Okay, we're going to look at the textual attributes. And this is a point of controversy in Sunni Islam. And it shouldn't be a controversy. It seems pretty common sense, but there's a group that makes this very controversial for some reason. And again, we come back to Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, who he says something here that we would agree with, actually, and all Muslims should agree with. He says, نُثْبِتُ لِلَّهِ مَا أَثْبَتَهُ لِنَفْسِهِ, that we affirm for Allah whatever He has affirmed for Himself in His book, right? في كتابه أو على لسان رسوله من غير تحريف ولا تعطيل ومن غير تكييف ولا تمثيل, that we affirm whatever Allah affirmed for Himself, whatever description Allah affirmed for Himself in His book, upon the tongue of His messenger, we affirm it. We affirm it for Allah without distortion, without denial. We're not going to distort the meaning or deny the meaning without asking how, without likening Him to creation. So this is the text of Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, which shows that actually Ibn Taymiyyah is not he's not somebody who thinks that Allah is a man sitting in space or something like this. Some people try to make out that he believes these types of things, but he is quite clear that he doesn't liken Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to creation. Um, the places where he does say that Allah has a literal hand, he will say that because he is denying the dominant theory of language of the Muslims of the time. Okay? So he's denying that there could ever be metaphor. He doesn't believe in the idea of metaphor. Ibn Taymiyyah doesn't believe in the idea of metaphor. Okay? There's no such thing as majaz. There's only haqiqah. There's only language being used literally. So if you say the hand of a clock, okay, now if I ask you, When I say the clock has a hand, what would any of you say? Am I using the word hand literally or metaphorically? What do you guys think?
Metaphorically.
Okay, see, so Omar, have you studied Kalam before?
No.
Okay, so there you go. I just proved the Salafis wrong. Okay, so I spoke to a person who never studied Kalam or Greek philosophy or this or that, and he just said the hand of a clock is metaphorical. Okay, so but the Salafi brothers they would say, well, if your mind is not corrupted by philosophy, you wouldn't think of literal and metaphor and this and that, and you would just affirm everything as literal based on its context. Okay, now this is not a I don't see how you can find support for that idea. That's not at all intuitive. Okay? So when I say hand, what do you think of first? Somebody who's never studied philosophy or kalam or um anything like that. So which of you have never like even like studied let's say those of you who are new Muslims. So Kyle or who else is a new Muslim? Sister Annie, are you a convert? A revert?
I'm not, no.
Oh, okay, okay. Who else? Is brother Zaid here? Brother Kyle, yeah, why don't you go ahead? So if I say hand, so let's say, um, yeah, if I use the word hand, what's the first thing you think of?
I mean, I would say, the literal hand, like a human hand, would be the first thing that pops in my mind.
Good, yeah, see? So again, in real time, we're disproving some of these ideas that they've had that um, the first thing that pops into your mind is the literal human hand. Okay? And this is what we mean by literal hand. Now, uh, some of the Salafi brothers are disagreeing. They're like, no, hand doesn't mean, this hand. Hand could mean anything. Hand could mean whatever's in context. So you say the hand of a clock. Okay? Is that a metaphorical usage? No, they'll say that's literal usage. You mean the hand of a clock. Hand in this context is referring to the thing in the clock. Um, if you say, "Oh, I really handed it to him," right? It means that you were aggressive with him or something else. That's a literal usage of hand. There's no such thing as a metaphor. Now, again, I don't know how convincing this is. It's not that convincing to me at all. So, we're gonna go with the normal understanding of language that most of us have. Okay? Okay, so this is the statement that Ibn Taymiyyah makes regarding the textual attributes of Allah. Remember, we said yad, sak, all these other words that are coming in the hadiths, okay, and even in the Quran, and they don't refer to a specific 99 names or power. They refer to something material. They refer to something literal, like a hand, okay, or the eyes of Allah, okay. You are always under our eyes. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about Musa alayhi salam, you are under our eyes, right? Fi ayunina. So what do we do with this? Can we affirm eyes for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Right? Can we affirm? Now, that goes into the meaning of what we mean by eyes. Is it okay to affirm literal eyes, like the two eyes that we have, or some type of material seeing device for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And what do you guys think? What should be the answer? Like, can we affirm like some literal seeing devices for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala?
No.
No, we obviously not. Okay, we just talked about necessary being, right? We said that Allah is not contingent whatsoever. And we're not just getting this from a rational argument, we're getting this from the Quran, right? We're getting it from Surah Ikhlas. Okay? قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. لم يلد ولم يولد. That he does not beget, he is not begotten. Okay? وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٌ. There's nothing like him. Okay? So, and there's no kufu for him. So, And then on other verses in the Quran, لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٌ, that there's absolutely nothing similar to him. لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٌ وَهُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْبَصِيرُ. Yet he is hearing and seeing. Meaning there's nothing similar to him, but he still has these attributes of sight and hearing. And the traditional tools of sight and hearing that we have, he cannot have it. He cannot have it. Okay? And that's why you'll see in a later passage in Tahawi, Imam Tahawi says that Allah is above having any type of tools or instruments or body parts or any type of thing. It's so clear in Aqidah Tahawiyah. It's so clear. He's explicit about this. All right? And this was the path of the Salaf, that we deny from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala any type of material or human or contingent characteristic. We deny it. So this is number one. And this is something that any Sunni Muslim will agree with you. And even Ibn Taymiyyah, I'm sure. Okay? But what does he mean here? We affirm for Allah whatever he has affirmed for himself in the book. Is this a blanket statement? It cannot be a blanket statement. Cannot. Why is that? Well, we have so many examples of attributes that Allah affirms for himself, but no one accepts them as attributes. Not even Ibn Taymiyyah, not even the most hardcore, extremist, Wahhabi, Salafi, whoever you want to call. None of them will affirm this as attributes because if you affirm these things, you are engaging in kufr. You've left Islam. Example, Nasullaha fanasiyahum. They forgot Allah, so Allah forgot them. Allah has attributed what to himself? An-nisyan, forgetfulness. Can Allah forget? What do you guys think? We just talked about a sifat al-ilm. It is
No,
attribute of knowledge.
he
No,
can't.
he can't forget. So Allah just affirmed forgetfulness for himself. What do we do with this? Ibn Taymiyyah just said, نُثْبِتُ لِلَّهِ مَا أَثْبَتَ لِنَفْسِهِ. We affirm for Allah what Allah affirmed for himself. So now what do? We have a problem. Actually, no, we don't have a problem because what this means is Allah will deal with them in the way that a person who forgets deals with somebody else. That's what it means. That's the meaning of this verse. We're taking the metaphorical meaning of this verse that the entire ummah has agreed upon. Okay? It's not a big deal. In fact, if I said this to a regular Muslim, on the day of judgment, Allah will forget you like you forgot Allah. People won't understand. People will get it. That means that Allah, He won't even look at me. He won't, pay attention. He will be, absolutely harsh because of all these sins and things. You guys understand? People generally understand what this means. Okay? But we're not affirming nisyan, forgetfulness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Another one. This is a very interesting one, right? مرض عبدي ولم تعودني. My servant fell ill and you did not visit him. Okay? مرض عبدي ولم تعودني. And um uh sorry, in at the beginning of this hadith, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that, "Oh my servant, I fell ill and you did not help me." At the beginning of this hadith. "Oh my servant, I became poor, you did not assist me." So what is Allah affirming for himself? He's affirming illness, that he got sick. SubhanAllah. Can we affirm this to Allah? What do you guys think?
No.
No. And you can see at the end of the hadith the explanation, the ta'wil, that marida abdi, my servant fell ill, and you didn't visit him. So Allah is making a comparison between the you visiting the servant, you visiting his servants, his creation when they are ill, and you not visiting him. He's saying that if you visited this ill person, you would have found me there as well. You would have found my pleasure there. You would have found my good rewards for you there, my happiness there, right? So this is the meaning of that hadith. Mockery and deception. وَيَمْكُرُونَ وَيَمْكُرُ اللَّهُ. So they scheme and Allah schemes, right? And then Allahu yastahzi'u bihim. Allah mocks them. Just like they mock Allah, Allah mocks them. This is a literary device in Arabic. We call a literary device in Arabic. It's for literary beauty. It's for like, it's sort of basically a device of literature, right? Where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says they're mocking Allah, Allah mocks them. Allahu yastahzi'u bihim. وَيَمْكُرُونَ وَيَمْكُرُ اللَّهُ. They scheme and Allah schemes. So let me ask you something. Can you affirm an attribute of scheming and mockery to Allah? Does it fit Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's necessary being who is perfect, who is above contingent reality and defects?
No.
No, we can't confirm that. What this means again, they scheme and Allah will treat them like somebody who schemes. Allah will treat them like somebody who schemes. So Allah will do with them like somebody who schemes. So they're scheming, Allah will foil their plans. That's what it means. Not that Allah Himself is a schemer or He has an attribute of scheming. Again, physical movements. Okay, this is a famous hadith in Riyadh al-Salihin that we are all aware of. Man taqarraba ilayya shibran, taqarrabtu ilayhi dhira'an. So whoever approaches me a handspan, right? Um, sorry, whoever approaches me just a small amount, I go to him a handspan. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala moves towards you a handspan if you move a little bit closer. Okay? And then whoever comes to me walking, Allah says, what does Allah say? Whoever comes to me walking,
I come to him running?
I come to him running. So Allah runs.
No.
So what does this mean? Right? And everyone reads these hadiths. And at the same time they say, "Oh, نُثْبِتُ اللَّهَ لِلَّهِ مَا أَثْبَتَ لِنَفْسِهِ." You guys, you deny the attributes of Allah. How dare you deny these attributes? Brother, do you affirm that Allah is a person running towards you literally? Or is it a metaphor? Every single person agrees that this is a metaphor. No one has a
Right.
problem with this, right? So, because you could say, why didn't Allah come to us in a car? Why didn't Allah why not flying? Why running? Okay, running is actually a lesser form of travel. You see? But that's not the whole point. The point of this hadith is to show if you make a step towards Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make all of the means to basically turn towards you and love you. That's what this hadith means. Okay? So we're doing that ta'wil. So not every textual attribute is an attribute of Allah. Not every textual attribute is an attribute of Allah. Okay, not everything, and this is why the Asharis will deny that those attributes are even attributes. Okay, and they're following Ibn Abbas radiallahu an in that sense because Ibn Abbas radiallahu an interpreted some of those attributes. That's what they're going with. Okay, now let's look at how to interpret these attributes. Okay, let's say Allah says in the Quran, Surah Al-Fath, Yadullahi fawqa aydihim. Or, um, what's the famous one? Allahu um, uh, istawa ala al-arsh. Okay, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did istawa. He did istawa on the arsh, on the throne. This is a verse in the Quran. Okay, how do we approach this? All of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah is agreed. They have agreed that the first step to approaching any type of text dealing with Allah is at-tanzih. That's number one. You do tanzih, that Allah is transcendent from any type of corporeal meaning, any type of bodily, corporeal matter, like tool, instrument, like an actual thing that you can touch and feel. Allah is transcendent from all of that. Any type of contingent thing. He has to be. We just talked about his attributes. You guys remember, right? As a necessary being, he's mukhalifun lil hawadith, Surah al-Ikhlas, right? All these other verses in the Quran. So that's step number one. And this is when Imam Malik said that, um, sorry, what was the statement by Imam Malik? Um, forgot. Al-istiwa'u ma'lum wal kayfu ghayru ma'qul. And in fact, this is not the authentic version. The authentic version of the narration says, "Wal kayfu marfu." Wal kayfu marfu. It's been removed. Okay, we deny it. Marfu, something that's been taken out. The kayf is marfu. Okay, So the first step is tanzih. The first step is transcendence. Any type of thing, yadullahi fawqa aydihim, istawa ala al-arsh, whatever it may be, right? Yawma yukshafu an saqin. First thing is transcendence. We deny the literal corporeal meaning of the word. Now there's a second step. Then what is the meaning of this word in relation to Allah? There are two approaches. The first approach is the approach of the Salaf, which is at-tafwid. At-tafwid, which is, and people try to distort the tafwid and say, well, tafwid means like we don't know anything about it, we just deny, it's just a random word, we just deny whatever it means, and we're saying that this word is nonsense. No, this is not, no one said this. If someone could find a text for me, I would gladly, look at it, but no one has said this, okay? Tafwid, right, is literally just saying, okay, we don't know the meaning of this. Allah knows the meaning. Not that this word doesn't have a meaning. Yadullahi fawqa aydihim. We're just saying Allah knows the meaning. We don't need to care about it. It's not important for us to understand. Allah knows the meaning. We deny the literal meaning that Allah has a hand like this, Yadullahi fawqa aydihim. We deny that. And then there are other meanings of hand in the dictionary. If you look up in the dictionary, hand could be used for different meanings. For example, power. It could be used for power. It could be used for assistance. It could be used for uh, uh, showing some type of superiority. Okay, it could be used for like ma'iyya, like being together with somebody. So there's so many different other meanings of hand that you have in the dictionary. Now, which of these meanings fit this specific word? We're going to stay silent. We're not going to assign a specific meaning to this word. We're going to say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows it best, right? Allahu ta'ala a'lam. So this is what we mean when we say bila kayf. And we're doing this out of piety and caution. So this is at-tafwid. Everyone understand what tafwid means? So again, the first step everyone agrees on is tanzih. So we have a word that comes to us, istawa al-arsh. Allah did istawa on the arsh. What is the meaning of istawa? We have to remove any type of meaning that does not fit Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? We have, just like we did here, nasullaha fanasiyahum, that forgetfulness, right? We have to remove that meaning, actually forgetting something. But can we find a meaning that fits this verse? And this is what we all do. We find a metaphorical meaning that fits this verse. The same thing. The first thing we do is we remove the literal meaning, and then we go to tafwid. Okay? We say that the actual meaning of this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. We don't need to deal with it. The later scholars, some of them, they did what's called at-ta'wil. And ta'wil is something that is debated over, but some of the scholars have preferred it. Some of the scholars said, no, we should not do it. And, the Maturidis generally, they do not do ta'wil, right? They do not like doing ta'wil. And what this is that now we're assigning a meaning from the dictionary to this word. We're saying in this context, it means this. Okay? But all of the people that did ta'wil would say Allahu A'lam. Would say what? Allahu A'lam, that Allah knows best. This is simply a possibility. Okay, no one is saying that we're going to deny the attribute of Allah and say that it's this. No, they're giving a probabilistic answer. Okay? As you can see some quotes from here, Yadullahi sifatun bila kayf. As Imam Abu Hanifa says in Fiqh al-Akbar. Okay? And then the famous statement of Imam al-Tahawi, وَتَعَالَى عَنِ الْحُدُودِ وَالْغَايَاتِ وَالْأَرْكَانِ وَالْأَعْضَادِ وَالْأَدَوَاتِ لَا تَحْوِيهِ الْجِهَاتُ السِّتُّ كَمَا كَسَائِرِ الْمُبْتَدَعَاتِ. So Allah is exalted about limits, boundaries, corners, organs, tools. The six directions do not encompass Him, unlike created things. This is a very explicit statement in Aqidah Tahawiyah. Okay? And Imam Malik as well, the authentic narration, he says, Al-istiwa'u ma'lum, wal-kayfu marfu'. Right? This is the authentic narration. This is actually a weaker one. Okay? Al-istiwa, the word, istiwa, we understand it in the Arabic language. It can have many, many meanings. Wal kayfu, which of these meanings has been assigned to Allah? Marfu. It's taken away. Okay? Wal imanu bihi wajib. Okay, the kayf of it, kayfiyya, is marfu. And kayf always refers to some physical arrangement, right? Kayf always refers to what? Some physical arrangement. This is why Imam Malik is denying it. Wal imanu bihi wajib. So we have to believe that this word has been used for Allah. Was su'alu anhu bid'ah. And Imam Malik is very strict here. He says to even ask about it is a bid'ah. And this was the position of the Salaf. So the people that cause a controversy regarding these attributes, they are directly opposing the Salaf. So the people that go up to people and say, "What do you say about the hand of Allah? What do you say about this?" And there are people, in Camden and other areas that do this in Philadelphia, even some groups within the Muslim world, right? They always try to spark controversy in this topic. You see here, Imam Malik is clearly saying that doing so is an innovation. Okay? So doing so is an innovation. All right? Okay, so now let's do a practical demonstration of tafweed. Right? And tawweed is the position of the Salaf. It is the position of the Salaf. Um, in reality, dear brothers and sisters, everyone does ta'wil. Okay? It depends on how much ta'wil you're doing. Because what is the definition of ta'wil? Does anyone know? What is the definition, the textbook definition of doing ta'wil? What does that mean? Interpretation. Does anyone know the textbook definition? Anyone? Yes, one. You were going to say something? So the textbook definition of ta'wil means, right? Sarful lafzi an zahirihi is basically to turn away the literal meaning of a word. That's it. That's literally what ta'wil means. So even when we're doing tafweed, even when we're doing the step of tanzih, of saying Allah's transcendent, we're doing what? We're doing ta'wil. You see? So even the person who says, oh, we can't attribute forgetfulness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they're doing ta'wil immediately. Okay, immediately. So it depends on which ta'wil is valid and which ta'wil is not valid. Okay, so we're almost done with class here. Let me show you guys a practical. Okay, can you guys see this?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say istawa. Istawa, okay? So Allahu stawa ala al-arsh. That Allah did istawa on the arsh. Okay, and I'm not purposely defining what the word means here. Okay, so let's look at Qadi Abu Bakr ibn al-Arabi, who is one of the great, great, great giants of the Maliki school, and he's writing from Andalus, from Muslim Spain. And let's see what he has to say about the word istawa. Qadi Abu Bakr ibn al-Arabi gives 15 meanings for istawa from the dictionary. Okay, so the first step that you try to figure out of what this word means is you go to a dictionary. That's what you do. So you get all of the meanings of the word. So this is what he does. And you can see here, there are 15 different words. Um, it means ala, to raise, to ascend in a physical direction. Okay. Yartafa'a, to be elevated. Okay. If something is istawa, it's elevated, it's up there. Okay. Sa'ada, to climb. Okay. Istawa, to climb. Okay. It means qama, to stand up, like if I got up from here. It means qasada, to intend, to direct oneself. Now, okay, we're getting somewhere with this. Does this have a type of physical movement aspect to this word? To intend, to direct oneself. No, right? It doesn't have that. Istawla, to take possession, to gain mastery. Okay, so the famous line of poetry that they always use is somebody istawla ala al-Iraq. Okay, so he took possession of Iraq. Tamam, to be completed, perfected. i'tidal, to become balanced. So you can think of a scale, it becomes balanced like a physical state. Isti'ala, to dominate, have superiority, and so on and so forth. There's like 15 different meanings, okay? So the step of tanzi, number one, the first step is transcendence. We have to deny all of the meanings that refer to some type of physical posture or physical states. So we X out all of these meanings because they don't fit Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because we just said that Allah is necessary being. Allah is nothing like creation. Okay? So the first step, we delete all those meanings. So 10 meanings have been eliminated. Now there are five meanings that are remaining in the dictionary. Okay? Now, option number one is tafwid. Option number one says, okay, we don't know which of these meanings have been intended. So we stay silent. Allah knows best which meaning He intended. So do you guys get what tafwid means here? It does not mean that this word does not have a meaning. This is what the other side always tells us that, oh, you guys are saying that this word has no meaning. No, no. We're saying we're not going to specify what the meaning is. We're not going to specify what the meaning is. Okay, this is tafwid. Option number two is to take a specific meaning and assign it. Okay? So for example, many will say, Istawa ala al-arsh, Allah istawla ala al-arsh. He took possession, he gained mastery over the arsh. And the arsh represents all of creation. All of creation, the arsh is the biggest, most gigantic creation that towers over all of the seven heavens, all of the universe. It encompasses all of them. So when Allah says, Allah istawa ala al-arsh, he took possession, he gained mastery over all of this. Okay? Um, Now, this is the traditional Ashari way of looking at these attributes. But we said that the Maturidis, they will say that they'll get to this step, tafwid, they'll get to tanzih, this is everyone does. And then in step number two, what they will be saying is, we don't know which meaning is intended, and this is also an attribute of Allah. It's an attribute. And we just don't know what is the modality of it, um what's the specific meaning intended by it. Okay, but it's also an attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah has an attribute called istawa. Okay, just like Allah has an attribute called ilm or qudra or irada, and Allah has an attribute called yad. Okay, not hand. The Maturidis will say it's haram for you to translate yad to another language. This is explicitly in Bahrul Kalam by Imam al-Nasafi. He says this, that it's we affirm Allah has uyun, Allah has hand, sorry, yad, Allah istawa, and then he lists different things, and he says it is haram for anyone to translate these into another language. Okay? So that's the Maturidi position. So we affirm these things as attributes of Allah, and we stay silent on their intended meaning. Okay, so that I hope that explains in a lot of detail the idea, the controversy over the sifat al-khabariyah, okay, which is the textual attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And going forward, just pull up, the site to get a review of that if you ever need to, if you're ever confused by it, because you will any type of Aqidah class that you attend, whether in South Jersey or Philadelphia or like in the tri-state area, that's not from like Sunnis, okay? Sorry, that's not from like Asharis and Maturidis. The first thing they start talking about is this, which I don't understand, okay? Even for the public, any type of Aqidah class that you attend, even for the public, this is the thing that they always start talking about, which I just don't see as productive at all, but hopefully that'll give you a context and it'll save you from incorrect ideas in the future, inshallah. So that's our class for today. Next week we have a very interesting topic, which is free will and destiny. So we're gonna go into that a little bit more next week, inshallah. Any questions? No questions? Okay,
I
inshallah.
had one actually quickly.
Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
So in the context of tafsir, when it comes to the Matari or the Ashri approach to those words,
Mhm,
is it fair to say that when they because those words are there for a reason, obviously Allah knows what
mhm,
those reasons words why he chose what he chose for those
mhm.
words. Are the tafsir, the commentaries, basically derived by working around that word and just looking at the impact, just like you said earlier, when we say, okay, there's the sun, we don't look at the sun, but we look at the impact of the sun on creation.
Yeah, like you're basically saying like if we're saying we don't know what that word means, then how are we deriving the commentary, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, so the Salaf, you see a lot of the Salaf will just say like we just read this verse and we pass over it. So a lot of the Salaf were of this opinion because they didn't want to delve into they didn't want to sort of risk giving a wrong interpretation. Okay? But then you have people like Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu who would interpret it just like that. He would say Yadullahi, it's the assistance of Allah. We have literal reports from Ibn Abbas just doing that. Right? So you have these two schools of a tafsir that is very, very like cautious, okay, but also a tafsir that tries to, I guess, give more meaning, okay, and just because the word appears in a verse doesn't always mean that it appears as an attribute. Okay, we spoke about this a couple slides ago, right? That not every textual attribute is actually an attribute. So we can affirm that Allah has a yad from other texts. Okay, so from other texts, where, for example, the Prophet ﷺ, um, like he'll be giving a story about the creation of Adam. So he says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created Adam uh, uh, with his yad. Okay, so from this story, we can understand that Allah has some type of attribute called yad, and He created Adam alayhi salam with it. Okay, but in this verse, yadullahi fawqa aydihim, Allah's hand is over their hand. You'll see even many of the Salaf and others, they'll interpret this. Okay, there's no problem here because in this context, this word might not refer to the actual attribute. Okay, so you have different of these things. And then another point that I have to make is that you can give an interpretation of an ayah and have it be probabilistic. And this is what a lot of the tafsir commentators do. And what do I mean by this? It means that we think it means this. In this context, the best evidence points to it means this. Allahu alam, and Allah knows best. And you can have multiple interpretations as long as they don't conflict with each other, all of them are valid. You guys get it? So an ayah of the Quran can have multiple shades of meaning, and if none of them conflict with each other, all of them are intended by Allah. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, He tells us in the Quran that it contains infinite wisdom. Okay? And Allah actually gives us a way of interpreting the Quran within the Quran. He says, what, in Surah Al Imran, that there are certain verses of the Quran that are muhkamat, that they are clear. Okay? And then there are other verses of the Quran that are mutashabihat, that they are ambiguous, they're hazy, they're not immediately clear what they mean. And the people with sick hearts, they always go to the unclear ones first to interpret the rest of the book. But the people with ilm, with knowledge, they stick to the muhkamat, right? They stick to the clear verses to inform the rest of the Quran. You see, so Allah's giving us a tool of how to interpret the Quran within the Quran itself. That look, your first bet is to look at the muhkam verses, the clear verses, and then interpret the rest of the Quran around those things.
That was my follow-up question. I was going to ask you as a layperson, if they don't have a commentary and we're all lay people, it's better to just kind of, I don't say gloss over it, move beyond those, but you just answer that by saying, well, actually, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answered that for us already, that we as lay people should just not ponder or spend much time and then move to those verses that are clear.
Yeah, you could say that as well, right? But also, even if you ponder the mutashabihat verses, what you have to understand is what we just discussed in Aqidah. The step one, tanzih, transcendence. So you can never ever assign a meaning to Allah that does not fit Allah. You have to do transcendence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from all of creation. So this is the caveat that we have to understand and why studying Aqidah is very important. So if you're reading the Quran and you want to reflect on a verse, you always have to start with the premise, okay, Allah's transcendent. لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ. There's nothing in creation like Allah. So you can never give him some type of corporeal or faulty quality that is associated with creation. And that's how you interpret this ayah. So whatever insights, personal insights that you get from an ayah, you have to always work around this idea that Allah's tanzih. You guys understand? So people will say, for example, Allah loves and Allah hates, and some people when they're speaking, they're talking as if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a type of human being, right? Allah got so angry, he's so this, he's so. We have to like really watch our language carefully, right? Because it gives the impression as if like, Allah's like this impulsive, like it gives the wrong impression, right? It gives the wrong impression. So we have to be careful in how we describe certain features, certain actions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All right. Okay, so we're good for today. Any other questions? Okay, if there are no other questions, then we'll end today, inshallah. We'll end with Surah Al-Asr. وَالْعَصْرِ الْإِنسَانُ فِي خُسْرٍ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَصَّوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَصَّوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. Inshallah, I'll see you guys next week. Assalamu alaikum.
Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.